Ant-Man and the Wasp really wowed the wings off us. This film is packed full of secrets, Easter eggs, winks, and throwbacks for old and new fans alike.
Computer load up, Celery Man, please.
Be aware, there are spoilers ahead. Before we begin, give us a like and subscribe to Screen Rant to join our exclusive club and be the first in the know on all new content.
The bartenders are all like, yeah, crazy stupid fine.
Let's begin with an easy one. Everyone catch Stanley's cameo? He's the elderly man about to get in his car when a shrinking disc from the Wasp shrinks the car from sight, revealing Stan Lee. Then he says the humorous line, "The 60s were great, but now I'm paying for it." Another cameo for the book of Stan Lee cameos. In the first installment of the Ant-Man films, Scott's trusty friend Luis says this line of dialogue. "We got everything nowadays."
We got a guy who jumps, we got a guy who swings, we got a guy who crawls up the walls. You gotta be more specific.
At the time, fans just thought it was a joke about Spidey. But then, when Spider-Man actually did appear in the MCU,
you're the Avengers, man.
It made fans pay more attention to what Luis does and says. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, Luis named his company X-Con, not X-Con, which would make more sense, which leaves us thinking that maybe the X-Men will be joining the MCU soon as well. Giant Man is an alias that superheroes from the Marvel comics have used in the past. Hank Pym was even the first Giant Man to appear in the comics. When Scott ascends to over 60 feet tall while in the San Francisco Bay, every news report gets him on TV. He's referred to as Giant Man, the first time he's been identified since Captain America Civil War. Seeing as most of his work is done at an almost unnoticeable size, he is most likely going to remain Giant Man to the public. We're sure that Ant-Man is fine with that.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Laurence Fishburne is the man who played the iconic role of Morpheus in The Matrix. Now he's playing Dr. Bill Foster in Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp, and finding himself in similar situations. Sure, he doesn't have tiny black glasses or an epic glistening outfit, but he is in the role of a teacher of sorts to Ghost. So obviously the filmmakers gave a little nod to Fishburne on the chalkboard behind him in one scene. They filled the entire board with mathematical equations and the word Matrix. Though that is a real math word, we're certain that they were referring to the timeless film. Just in case you didn't realize, the ending of Ant-Man and the Wasp actually takes place at the same time as Infinity War. Ant-Man even showed up on the posters for Infinity War, but was never in the film, which made fans ponder as to what happened. Many thought it had something to do with the quantum realm. Now that we know that the events of both movies took place at the same time, we understand. But it also seems like Scott will have a big role to play in Avengers 4. A line of dialogue warning about the time vortexes does not go unnoticed to those who frequently watch the MCU films. Many wondered after Infinity War if we'd see the events play out in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and in the mid-credits scene, we did. It wasn't Ant-Man who got dusted as many thought. It was actually Hank, Hope, and Janet that suffered the results of Thanos' finger snap. Now Ant-Man is just stuck in the quantum realm, and Avengers 4 can't come soon enough. Tim Heidecker was added to the cast as the whaleboat captain Daniel Gobler. For those of you who don't know, Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim are the creators of Tom Goes to the Mayor, and Tim and Eric awesome show, great job.
Go ahead, say some good.
So Tim's cameo as a whale tour guide who thinks that Ant-Man is a whale until he emerges from the water as Giant Man is as random as cameos get. But both Peyton Reed and Kevin Feige have said they are huge fans of Tim and Eric. Scott's daughter Cassie expresses her want to be her father's partner in his superhero endeavors. She wants to be a superhero herself one day, which may seem like just a cute scene to many, but we know in reality that Cassie Lang grows up to be a marvelous hero herself. Cassie grows up putting herself close to Pym particles to try and give herself powers. But it isn't until Scott passes that Cassie becomes a superhero in the comics, receiving the name Stature, and later Stinger. So this nice little piece of foreshadowing makes us wonder if we'll see a full-grown Cassie Lang in Avengers 4. Despite Randall Park cracking down the law on Scott, he's a lovable and funny character. But his role of Jimmy Woo is more meaningful than many realize. First appearing in the comics in 1956, an adult Jimmy Woo was imperative in the defeat of the Yellow Claw. Much later, Woo would eventually join S.H.I.E.L.D., and later still, the Agents of Atlas. Since 2013, Woo has been the headmaster of the Pan-Asian School for the Unusually Gifted, which is a special academy located in Mumbai for young Asians with superhuman abilities. Sound familiar? A little like Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, huh?
It's a big house. It's funny that I only ever see two of you.
Believe it or not, the music in the trailer was an Easter egg itself. Those high-pitched notes in the music that kinda sound like a sting were on purpose. Director Peyton Reed confirmed that it was from the band Adam and the Ants, and the song was titled Ants Invasion. action. How appropriate. In the actual movie, a song titled Ant Music was used. We're really into this whole bug theme. During the press junket for Ant-Man and the Wasp, both the director Peyton Reed and the producer Kevin Feige hinted at Easter eggs hidden in the quantum realm. Many fans have noticed 2 purple eyes in the quantum realm. Some people speculate that it was Thanos, while others think it's Dormammu from Doctor Strange. We will likely not have an answer anytime soon, at least until fans can go frame by frame through the psychedelic quantum realm sequences. Hank Pym has never been one concerned with size, and if there's any theme in the film, it's that size doesn't matter. As you can observe during the scenes in the lab, he has made everything out of old parts of things made big, such as coils from cars and motorcycles made big for support, and many other pieces of enlarged objects. The production team wanted the audience to wonder whether they were watching big heroes made small or small sets made big. Mission accomplished. Are you familiar with the name Jeffry Ballard? Ballard was a supervillain once opposed to Goliath, Iron Man, and a few other superheroes in his short time on the scene as the villain Centurion. But when bad guy Sonny Burch calls to tattle on Hank, Hope, and Scott, the FBI agent who picks up the phone is Ballard. It's a nice little shout out to include the FBI agent against the superhero as this comic book villain. Before Scott was kidnapped by Hope and Hank, he passes his time by doing various things around the house. One of them is watching National Lampoon's Animal House. When he's kidnapped, the scene plays in the background with Donald Sutherland talking about the universe. He hypothesizes our whole solar system could be like
one tiny atom in the fingernail of some other giant being,
which pretty much foreshadows all the events of the film that unfold. We've already briefly talked about how Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp overlap time, which explains Scott's whereabouts during the third Avengers film. However, he must be left in the quantum realm for a reason. Him being subatomic has to benefit the Avengers in some way. Will Janet's warning about the time vortexes give him a way to gain extra power? Or maybe turn back time to before the universal slaughter by Thanos? Aha! The time travel theory may have been correct after all. Only Time Vortex will tell. One fan had a theory about the costumes that stated that the face of an ant was in Paul Rudd's costume, while a face of a wasp was in Evangeline Lilly's. Costume designer Louise Frogley told Refinery29 that no, that was not the case. She said they tried to go Easter egg free, but while she was trying to go Easter egg free, they still made a reference to Egghead, Ghost's father's supervillain nickname. His real name was Dr. Elias Starr, and Ghost's costume was designed with the face being similar for her father's evil nickname, Egghead. Dr. Bill Foster is thrown back in the mix in this film, an old colleague of Hank Pym who now has a sort of vendetta against him. Back in the day, Foster was known as Goliath, and now he's no match to what Scott is doing with the technology. But either way, whatever Bill did back then was enough to get a shout out from Tony Stark in Iron Man 2. When Tony began looking for a cure to make Iron Man more powerful, he cites Project Goliath.
Everything from projects Pegasus, Exodus, and Goliath.
And now here we are, meeting Goliath at last. Speaking of Goliath, there was a flashback scene where we see Bill Foster in his days as a young experimental scientist. But instead of undergoing digital de-aging, which is what they did for Michael Douglas in the first Ant-Man, Laurence Fishburne, who plays Bill, called upon his real-life son. Langston Fishburne played the young Foster during the events that turned Ava into Ghost. It may have been a small part, but it's the kind of fun movie fact that audiences love, if they notice it, that is. We are vividly reminded of the famous line from Zoolander when Derek yells,
"A center for ants!"
But that has no reference here. Ant-Man and the Wasp go to Cassie's school to retrieve Ant-Man's suit. On the blackboard behind them, the teacher has sentences written for the students to rework into the plural possessive form. But between Hope and Scott, you can see one sentence referring to flowers that reads, "that my ants grow." Could this be a reference to Scott being stuck in child size that whole scene? The set designers must have been having fun that day. Any Hot Wheels collector of the 1950s versions would know that Hank Pym's car storage case looks mighty fine. The storage case is in the shape of a wheel, and holds all the Hot Wheels cars inside, allowing Hank to essentially carry around his entire garage of fancy cars with him. But that storage case looks like it's in mint condition along with the cars inside, which means Hank has been saving this thing since the 1960s. The car Louise chooses in the end, the purple one with flames, would have been our top choice as well. Once the heroes are put through the ringer and tested on every conceivable level in the film, Hope, Scott, and Cassie take a night off to go to the drive-in movie theater. It's the film that they're watching which is the Easter egg. They watch a black and white horror horror film with giant ants terrorizing civilians. It looks like they're watching the 1954 film Them. It was one of the first films to feature giant bugs.
Where the beast spawns its terrible progeny.
Ghost's backstory that was given in the second installment of the films has seemed to create plot holes. It was said that she was trained to be used as a secret operative for S.H.I.E.L.D. when her parents passed away. However, the issue with this is that over the course of 5 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., no one has even heard of her, not even in the 19 MCU films. It seems suspicious. We're certain that they'll figure out a way to patch up her storyline, but for now there are way more questions than answers. In the end sequence, when Hope, Cassie, and Scott are watching the movie in their shrunken car, there's a foreshadowing of a future villain. When Scott turns on the windshield wipers, a moth attacks the car. Nothing much is made of it, but the MCU could be hinting at the villain Skyne. Originally, she was Sybil Dvorak, but once she joined Night Shift and the Masters of Evil, she was a full-blown villain. Maybe we'll get to see her in Avengers 4. Baba Yaga was used to describe Ghost by Kurt. She's a boogeyman that Marvel fans will know as the goddess of earth, witchcraft, and misfortune. For hundreds of years, she would eat innocent souls to sustain herself in the forest as she worked on witchcraft. Until one day, she picked a battle with Captain Britain, and even though things looked in her favor, they ended in her demise. We wonder if the comparison between the two will pay off in one of the MCU films. During the post-credits scene, we see the giant ant still wearing Scott's ankle bracelet while playing the drums. There's text that reads, "Ant-Man and the Wasp will return," followed by a question mark. This is a direct reference to when Dave Filoni wore a t-shirt during the Star Wars celebration in 2017 that said, "Ahsoka lives," with a question mark one day, and the next day he wore the same shirt but with an exclamation mark instead of a question mark. Could this mean that Ant-Man and the Wasp do survive? What do you think?
This is awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the most interesting fact about Ant-Man and the Wasp that you missed? Is there anything you caught that we didn't include? Let us know in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to Screen Rant and give us a like. Thanks for watching.